This is my true story. I am Miss Gloria Matthews, 70 years old, and if you enjoy powerful stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more, because what I'm about to share is a lesson in betrayal, dignity, and the quiet power of a woman who refuses to be erased. The call came on a Thursday morning, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains of my little kitchen, the air thick with the scent of fresh coffee and the distant sound of waves rolling in from the coast. I was humming to myself, thinking about the day ahead, when my phone rang and my daughter Simone's name flashed on the screen. I answered with a smile, expecting a simple hello, but her voice was cold, businesslike, and sharp as a knife. "We're going tomorrow, Mom. I've sold your villa and your car. The money's already in my account. Marcus and I are booking our flights to Europe tonight." For a moment I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled, the mug slipping from my grasp and shattering on the floor. I pressed the phone to my ear, trying to steady my voice. "You did what, Simone?" She sighed, as if I were a child who just didn't understand. "It's done, Mom. The villa was just sitting there and you don't need it anymore. You're not going to the coast these days, and Marcus found a buyer who paid cash. We'll come by in the morning to pick you up. You can stay with us until we figure out a retirement home for you." I stared out the window, the world suddenly smaller, the sky a little grayer. That villa wasn't just a house. It was the place Charles and I built with our own hands, brick by brick, after he came home from the service. It was where we spent every summer, where Simone learned to swim, where we celebrated birthdays and mourned losses, where Charles took his last breath 6 months ago, holding my hand and whispering, "Don't let anyone take your peace, Gloria." I swallowed the ache in my chest, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Simone, you had no right. That villa is my home." She laughed, a brittle sound that cut through me. "You're being dramatic, Mom. You'll be happier once you let go. Besides, you still have your memories, right?" I could hear Marcus in the background, his voice smug and careless. "Tell her to pack up the old photos, babe. We don't want to miss our flight." I hung up before I said something I'd regret, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the pieces of my broken mug, and let the silence settle around me. I felt the sting of betrayal, the humiliation of being treated like a burden, the anger simmering beneath my skin. But I also felt something else, a quiet, steady strength, the kind that comes from surviving storms and burying the love of your life. I wiped my tears, swept up the shards, and sat down at the table, pulling out the letter Charles left me before he died. His handwriting was shaky but strong. "Gloria, if you're reading this, it means you're facing something hard. Remember, the villa is protected. It's in the Matthews family trust. No one can sell it without your written consent. If Simone tries, call Mr. Ellis. He knows what to do. And never let anyone take your peace." I smiled through my tears, a sense of calm washing over me. Simone thought she'd won, but she didn't know the truth. I picked up the phone and dialed Mr. Ellis, my lawyer, my voice steady as I explained what had happened. "Don't worry, Miss Gloria," he said, his tone warm and reassuring. "I'll take care of everything. Just sit tight and let me handle it." As I hung up, I felt a flicker of hope, a spark of the old Gloria rising up inside me. I wasn't going to let Simone and Marcus steal my life, my memories, or my dignity. I poured myself another cup of coffee, savoring the taste, and began to plan. Tomorrow, when Simone and Marcus arrived, they would find a mother who was not broken but ready. And what they didn't know was that the villa held more secrets than they could ever imagine, and I was about to show them just how strong a mother's love and a widow's wisdom could be. That night I barely slept, my mind swirling with memories and plans, the ache of Charles's absence sharper than ever. I sat by the window watching the moonlight spill across the garden, thinking about all the years I'd poured into that villa. Every coat of paint, every rose bush Charles planted for me, every summer night spent listening to the waves and the laughter of a family that once felt unbreakable. I thought about Simone as a little girl, her curls bouncing as she ran down the villa's hallway, her laughter echoing off the old stone walls. How did we get here, I wondered, from bedtime stories and scraped knees to cold phone calls and betrayal. I tried to remember the last time Simone had visited the villa just to see me, not to ask for money or favors. It had been years, maybe longer. The grief of losing Charles was still fresh, a wound that hadn't closed, and now Simone's actions felt like salt poured right into it. But as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds, I felt a new resolve settle in my bones. I would not let my daughter's greed define the end of my story. I made myself a strong cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, pulling out the folder of documents Charles and I had kept safe all these years. The Matthews family trust, the deed to the villa, the letter from Mr. Ellis confirming that no sale could go through without my signature. I smiled, thinking of Charles's foresight, his quiet way of protecting me even after he was gone. I called Mr. Ellis again just to be sure. Miss Gloria, everything is in order, he assured me. The sale is invalid. The funds will be frozen, and the buyer will be notified. Simone and Marcus have no legal claim to the villa or your car. I'll send a letter to Simone this morning, explaining everything. Relief washed over me, but I knew the hardest part was yet to come. I spent the morning packing a small bag with the things that mattered most. My wedding ring, Charles's old watch, the family Bible, and a photo of Simone as a baby, her eyes wide with wonder. I walked through the villa, touching the walls, the furniture, the memories, saying a quiet goodbye to the life I'd built and the woman I used to be. I wasn't leaving for good, but I needed to be ready for whatever storm Simone and Marcus would bring. Around noon, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel drive. Simone's voice rang out before she even reached the door, sharp and impatient. "Mom, are you ready? We don't have all day." Marcus followed, his arms crossed, his eyes cold. "Let's get this over with," he muttered. I opened the door, my face calm, my heart steady. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Simone swept past me, barely glancing at the photos on the wall, the ones she used to beg me to show her as a child. "We need to pack up your things, Mom. The new owner wants the place empty by tomorrow." I watched as she moved through the villa, her hands grabbing at memories she didn't care to keep, her voice clipped and businesslike. Marcus started loading boxes into the car, grumbling about the old junk and how much work it was. I let them work, saying little, watching as they stripped the villa of its warmth, its history, its soul. When Simone finally paused, wiping sweat from her brow, she looked at me with something like pity. "You'll be happier once you're settled, Mom. Trust me." I met her gaze, my own eyes steady. "We'll see, Simone. We'll see." As they finished, Simone handed me a set of papers. "Sign these, Mom. It's just a formality for the buyer." I took the papers, glancing at the lines where she tried to forge my signature, the desperation in her handwriting clear as day. I handed them back, my voice quiet but firm. "I won't be signing anything today." Simone's face twisted in frustration, but before she could argue, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Ellis. "Letter delivered. Funds frozen. Call me if you need anything." I smiled, tucking the phone into my pocket. Simone and Marcus had no idea what was coming, but I was ready. As they left, slamming the door behind them, I sat in the quiet villa, the sun streaming through the windows, and whispered a promise to Charles. "I will protect what we built. I will not let them take my peace." And tomorrow, when Simone realizes what she's done, she'll finally understand that a mother's love is fierce, but so is her justice. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. I knew before I even looked who it was, Simone, calling far earlier than she ever had for anything that wasn't about money. I let it ring twice before answering, my voice calm and steady. "Good morning, Simone." Her words tumbled out in a panic, all the cold confidence from yesterday gone. "Mom, something's wrong. The buyer's lawyer just called and said the sale is off. They said the money's frozen and we have to vacate the villa immediately." Marcus is furious and I don't understand what's happening. I listened, letting her desperation hang in the air for a moment before replying. Did you get the letter from Mr. Ellis? There was a pause, then the sound of shuffling papers. Yes, but I don't get it. It says the villa is in a trust and can't be sold without your signature. Why didn't you tell me? I closed my eyes, feeling a mix of sadness and vindication. Because Simone, you never asked. You just assumed you could take what you wanted, like I was too old or too tired to notice. I could hear Marcus in the background, his voice sharp and angry. Tell her to fix this. We need that money, Simone. She lowered her voice, pleading now. Mom, please, you have to help us. We already spent some of the money on the flights, and now the bank says we're liable for fraud. I could lose everything. I took a deep breath, remembering Charles's words. Never let anyone take your peace. Simone, you made your choices. I warned you not to rush into things, but you didn't listen. Now you have to face the consequences. There was a long silence, broken only by Simone's quiet sobs. I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted a better life. I thought if I could get away, start fresh, maybe things would be different. My heart ached for her, but I knew I couldn't let her off easy. A better life doesn't come from stealing from your own mother, Simone. It comes from honesty, from hard work, from respecting the people who love you. She sniffled, her voice small. What do I do now? I softened just a little. Come home, Simone. We'll talk. But you need to understand, things are going to change. I hung up, my hands trembling, the weight of years of disappointment and hope pressing down on me. I sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the garden Charles had loved so much, and let myself cry for the little girl Simone used to be, for the mother I'd tried to be, for the family we'd lost and the one I still hoped to save. As the morning light filled the villa, I wiped my tears and stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. I knew Simone would be on my doorstep soon, and when she arrived, she would find a mother who was no longer afraid to stand her ground. The battle for my villa, and for my dignity, was far from over, but I was ready for it. And deep down I hoped that maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment Simone finally learned what it meant to be family. By midday, the villa was quiet except for the distant sound of the waves and the anxious flutter in my chest as I waited for Simone to arrive. I spent the morning tidying up, not because I expected company, but because it gave my hands something to do while my mind raced through every possible outcome. I dusted the old family photos on the mantel, pausing at one of Charles holding Simone as a baby, his eyes full of hope and pride. I wondered what he would say if he could see us now, his daughter desperate and lost, his wife fighting to hold on to the last piece of their shared life. The doorbell rang just after noon, sharp and insistent. I opened the door to find Simone standing on the porch, her face pale and drawn, her eyes rimmed red from crying. She clutched her purse like a lifeline, her voice trembling as she spoke. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Marcus is gone. He left as soon as the money was frozen. I have nowhere else to go. I stepped aside, letting her in, my heart torn between anger and compassion. She walked into the living room, her gaze darting around the villa as if seeing it for the first time. I just wanted to start over, Mom. I thought if I could sell the villa, I'd finally be free. But now I've lost everything. I sat across from her, my hands folded in my lap, my voice steady. You didn't lose everything, Simone. You still have a mother who loves you, even if you tried to take what wasn't yours. She broke down then, sobbing into her hands, her shoulders shaking with the weight of her choices. I let her cry, the silence between us heavy with all the things we'd never said. When she finally looked up, her eyes were full of regret. How did you know, Mom? How did you protect the villa? I smiled, a little sad, a little proud. Your father and I planned for this, Simone. We put the villa in a trust so it could never be taken from our family, not by outsiders and not by our own. Charles always said, protect what matters most. She nodded, wiping her tears. I wish I'd listened. I wish I'd understood what this place meant to you. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. It's not too late, Simone. But things have to change. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. She nodded again, her grip tightening. I will, Mom. I promise. As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. A chance to rebuild, to forgive, to find our way back to each other. But I also knew that trust, once broken, takes time to heal. I stood, leading Simone to the kitchen, where I poured us both a cup of tea. We'll start with honesty, Simone. No more secrets. No more lies. She nodded, her eyes shining with determination. As we sat together sipping tea in the quiet villa, I realized that sometimes the greatest revenge is not in taking back what was stolen, but in showing the ones who hurt you how to become better. And as the day faded into evening, I knew that our story was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, I was ready to see where it would lead. That evening, as the sky turned lavender and the first stars blinked above the villa's tiled roof, Simone and I sat at the kitchen table, the silence between us thick but not unfriendly. She picked at her tea, her hands restless, her eyes darting to the window as if she might see Marcus's car pull up, though we both knew he was long gone. I watched her, seeing not just the woman she'd become but the frightened girl she still was underneath, desperate for approval, terrified of being alone. Mom, she finally whispered, her voice raw. I don't know how to fix this. I've made such a mess. I lied to you, I lied to myself, and now I've lost everything. I reached across the table, my hand warm over hers. You haven't lost me, Simone, but you have to start telling the truth. Why did you really do it? Was it just the money? She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. It was never just about the money. After Dad died, I felt so empty. I thought if I could just get away, start over somewhere new, maybe I wouldn't feel so lost. Marcus promised me a new life, but all he wanted was what I could give him. When the money disappeared, so did he. I listened, my heart aching for her. For the years we'd spent circling each other, both of us too proud or too scared to say what we really felt. Simone, you don't have to run anymore. You can stay here, but you have to help me rebuild what you tried to tear down. The villa is more than a house. It's our family's heart. If you want to be part of it, you have to earn back my trust. She nodded, her face crumpling with relief and shame. I want to, Mom. I really do. I squeezed her hand, feeling the old wounds between us begin to close just a little. As we cleared the table, Simone paused, her eyes searching mine. Is there anything left for me here, Mom? Can I really start over? I smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. There's always something left, Simone, but you have to be willing to work for it. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about Charles, about the promise I'd made to protect our family, and about the daughter who had finally come home, not as a conqueror, but as a child in need of forgiveness. I knew the road ahead would be hard, that trust would take time to rebuild, but for the first time in years I felt a sense of peace. The villa was safe, my dignity intact, and my heart, though bruised, was still open to the possibility of healing. As I drifted off to sleep, I whispered a prayer for Simone, for myself, and for the family we might still become. And in the quiet darkness, I knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new hope. The next morning, the villa was filled with the gentle light of a new day, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a cautious sense of hope as I moved through the rooms. Simone was already awake, sitting on the back patio with a mug of coffee, her eyes red but her posture less defensive than before. I joined her, the two of us wrapped in the quiet sounds of birdsong and the distant crash of waves. I want to help, Mom, she said softly, her voice uncertain but sincere. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try to make things right. I nodded, feeling the truth in her words, but also the weight of all that still needed to be rebuilt. It starts with honesty, Simone. No more secrets. If you're going to stay here, you need to be part of this family, not just someone passing through. She looked down, twisting the mug in her hands. I know. I want to be better. I want to be someone you can trust again. I reached over, squeezing her shoulder. That's all I ask. We spent the morning working side by side, cleaning out the guest room, sorting through old boxes, and making a list of repairs the villa needed. Simone surprised me by rolling up her sleeves and getting her hands dirty, scrubbing floors and patching cracks in the walls. There was a quiet determination in her movements, a humility I hadn't seen in years. As we worked, she told me about her life with Marcus, the promises he'd made, the debts he'd hidden, the way he'd slowly isolated her from her friends and family. I thought he loved me, Mom. I thought I was finally going to be enough for someone. I listened, my heart aching for the daughter I'd almost lost to her own loneliness. You are enough, Simone. You always have been. You just forgot how to see it. She wiped her eyes, a small smile breaking through. Maybe I did. But I want to remember. After lunch we took a walk down to the shore. The sand cool beneath our feet, the wind tangling our hair. We talked about Charles, about the summers we'd spent as a family, about the dreams we'd all let slip away. Simone apologized again, her voice trembling. I'm sorry for everything, Mom. For the lies, for the greed, for not being there when you needed me most. I stopped, turning to face her, my own eyes shining with tears. I forgive you, Simone. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means we start again, one day at a time. She nodded, relief and gratitude flooding her face. As we walked back to the villa, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The kind that comes from knowing you've survived the worst and still have something worth fighting for. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Simone reached for my hand. Thank you, Mom, for giving me another chance. I squeezed her fingers, my heart full. That's what mothers do, baby. We never stop hoping. As the stars blinked to life above us, I knew the journey wasn't over. But for the first time, I believed we might actually find our way home. And deep down I knew that the villa, our villa, would always be a place where forgiveness and love could begin again. The days that followed settled into a gentle rhythm, the kind that comes after a storm, when the air is clearer but the ground is still soft beneath your feet. Simone and I worked together on the villa, painting the faded shutters a cheerful blue, planting new roses in the garden where Charles once knelt with his hands in the dirt, and repairing the old fence that had weathered so many seasons. Each task was a small act of healing, a way to stitch together the torn fabric of our relationship. Simone was quieter now, more thoughtful, and I could see her trying to find her place in a world that no longer revolved around Marcus or the empty promises of escape. One afternoon, as we sorted through a box of old letters in the attic, Simone found a faded envelope addressed to her in Charles's handwriting. She opened it with trembling hands, her eyes filling with tears as she read his words. Simone, never forget that you are loved, no matter how far you wander. This villa is your home, and your mother is your anchor. Take care of each other. She pressed the letter to her heart, her voice breaking. I wish I'd listened, Mom. I wish I'd come home sooner. I hugged her, feeling the old pain and new hope mingling in my chest. You're here now, Simone. That's what matters. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun set over the water, Simone turned to me, her face serious. Mom, I want to find a job. I want to pay my own way, help with the bills, and prove to you, and to myself, that I can be responsible. I smiled, pride swelling in my heart. That's a good start, baby. I know it won't be easy, but I believe in you. The next morning, Simone walked into town and returned with an application for a job at the local bookstore, her eyes shining with determination. They said they'd call me for an interview, she said, her voice hopeful. I squeezed her hand, feeling a surge of gratitude for this second chance. But just as we were beginning to settle into our new life, a letter arrived in the mail, a notice from the villa's insurance company, warning of a claim filed by Marcus, who was trying to contest the trust and claim a share of the property. My heart pounded as I read the letter, anger and fear rising in my chest. Simone's face went pale, her hands shaking. "He's not done with us, Mom. He's going to try to take everything." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Let him try, Simone. We have the law on our side, and more importantly, we have each other." That night, as I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the trust documents and drafting a letter to Mr. Ellis, I felt the old fire return, the fierce determination to protect what mattered most. I knew the battle wasn't over, but I was ready to fight, not just for the villa, but for the future Simone and I were building together. As the wind rattled the windows and the moon rose high above the sea, I whispered a promise to Charles and to myself. I will not let anyone take our peace. Not now, not ever. The next morning I woke early, the villa still quiet, the only sound the distant call of gulls and the soft hush of the sea. I sat at the kitchen table, the trust documents spread out before me, and dialed Mr. Ellis, my hand steady despite the storm brewing in my chest. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and reassuring. "Don't worry, Miss Gloria. Marcus doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. The trust is airtight and his name isn't anywhere on it. I'll send a formal response to the insurance company and make sure he can't cause any more trouble." Relief washed over me, but I knew better than to let my guard down. I spent the morning gathering every piece of paperwork I could find. Old letters from Charles, receipts for repairs, even faded photographs of Simone as a child playing in the garden. Each item was a thread in the tapestry of our family, proof that this villa was more than just a house. It was our legacy. Simone joined me in the study, her face drawn but determined. "I want to help, Mom. I want to make sure Marcus can't hurt us again." I handed her a stack of documents, watching as she carefully sorted and labeled each one. There was a quiet strength in her now, a resilience I hadn't seen before. As we worked, she told me about the job interview at the bookstore. They asked about my experience and I was honest. I told them I'd made mistakes, but I was ready to start over. They said they admired my honesty. I smiled, pride swelling in my heart. "That's all anyone can ask, Simone. Just keep moving forward." That afternoon, a knock at the door startled us both. I opened it to find Marcus standing on the porch, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't keep me out, Gloria. I have rights. Simone owes me, and so do you." I stood tall, my voice steady. "You have no claim here, Marcus. The villa is protected, and you're not welcome. If you try anything else, I'll call the authorities." Simone stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "It's over, Marcus. I'm done letting you control me. Leave us alone." He glared at us, his bravado crumbling, then turned and stormed off down the drive. I closed the door, locking it behind him, my heart pounding with relief and pride. Simone collapsed into my arms, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Mom, for standing up for me, for us." I held her close, whispering, "We're stronger together, baby. No one can take that from us." That night, as we sat on the porch watching the stars, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The battle wasn't over, but we'd faced it together, and for the first time, I truly believed we could weather whatever storms lay ahead. As the moon rose high above the villa, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, for second chances, for the strength to fight, and for the love that bound us together no matter what. The days that followed Marcus's visit were tense, but there was a new steadiness in the villa, a sense that Simone and I were finally facing the world as a team. We kept busy, tending the garden, repainting the front door, and making small repairs that had been neglected for too long. Simone threw herself into her new job at the bookstore, coming home each evening with stories about the customers and the quiet pride of earning her own way. I watched her grow stronger, her confidence returning with every day she spent away from Marcus's shadow. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't finished with us. One afternoon, as I was baking a batch of Charles's favorite cornbread, the phone rang. It was Mr. Ellis, his voice brisk but reassuring. Gloria, I wanted to let you know that Marcus's claim has been officially denied. The insurance company is closing the file, and there's nothing more he can do legally. But I'd advise you to stay alert. Sometimes people like him don't give up so easily. I thanked him, relief flooding through me, but I kept my guard up. That evening, Simone came home with a small bouquet of wildflowers, her cheeks flushed with happiness. I got the job, Mom. They want me to start full-time next week. I hugged her, pride and joy mingling in my heart. I knew you could do it, Simone. I'm so proud of you. We celebrated with a simple dinner on the patio, the air warm and sweet with the scent of blooming roses. As we ate, Simone grew quiet, her gaze distant. Mom, I've been thinking. I want to pay you back for what I tried to take. I know it'll take time, but I want to start making things right. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. You're already doing that, baby. What matters is that you're here, that you're trying. That's all I ever wanted. She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me. Later that night, as I was locking up, I noticed a shadow moving near the edge of the property. My heart skipped, but when I stepped outside, there was nothing but the sound of the wind in the trees. I stood for a moment, listening to the quiet, then went back inside, double-checking the locks. I knew Marcus was still out there, still angry, still looking for a way back in. But I also knew that whatever came next, Simone and I would face it together. As I climbed the stairs to bed, I whispered a prayer for protection, for strength, and for the courage to keep moving forward. The villa was more than just a house. It was a testament to everything we'd survived, and I was determined to protect it, no matter what. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt Charles's presence beside me, a gentle reminder that I was never truly alone. And in the darkness I found peace, knowing that the worst was behind us, and the future, though uncertain, was finally ours to shape. The next morning, the villa was filled with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years, as if the walls themselves were breathing easier now that the threat of Marcus had faded into the background. Simone left early for her first full day at the bookstore, her steps light and her smile genuine, and I watched her go with a heart full of pride and a touch of worry. I spent the morning tending the roses, humming one of Charles's old songs, letting the sun warm my face and the earth ground me. Around noon, I received a letter in the mail, the envelope thick and official looking. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting more trouble, but instead I found a note from the insurance company confirming that the villa's title was secure, the trust unbreakable, and that Marcus's claim had been permanently closed. Relief washed over me, and I sat on the porch letting the good news settle in. But as I sipped my tea, a car pulled up at the end of the drive. A sleek, unfamiliar sedan. My heart skipped, but when the door opened, it was a woman I didn't recognize, her posture confident, her eyes kind. She introduced herself as Mrs. Harris, a neighbor from down the coast who'd heard about my story through the grapevine. Miss Gloria, I just wanted to say how much your strength has inspired me. I lost my own home to a family dispute years ago, and I wish I'd had your courage. We talked for a long while, sharing stories of loss and resilience, and by the time she left, I felt a new sense of community blooming around me. That afternoon, Simone returned home, her arms full of books and her face glowing with excitement. Mom, they want me to help organize a reading program for local kids. They said my story could help others who are struggling. I hugged her, tears of joy stinging my eyes. You're making a difference, Simone. I always knew you would. As we prepared dinner together, the phone rang again. This time it was Mr. Ellis. Gloria, I have some news. The villa's trust has accrued more interest than we realized. You have a small windfall coming your way. It's enough to make some repairs, maybe even take a little trip if you want. I laughed, the sound light and free. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I think I'll use it to plant more roses, and maybe start a scholarship in Charles's name. That night, as Simone and I sat on the porch watching the stars, she turned to me, her voice soft. Mom, I never thought I'd find peace again. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. I squeezed her hand, my heart full. That's what mothers do, baby. We hold on, even when it hurts. As the moon rose over the villa, I felt a sense of closure settling in. The past finally at rest, the future bright with promise. But just as I was about to head inside, I noticed a letter tucked under the door. A simple note from Marcus, scrawled in shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. I hope you both find happiness. I stood in the doorway, the cool night air brushing my cheeks, and whispered a prayer of forgiveness, letting go of the last of my anger. The villa was safe, my family was healing, and for the first time in a long while, I truly believed that we were exactly where we were meant to be. The following week, the villa seemed to glow with a new kind of light, as if the walls themselves were grateful for the peace that had finally settled over us. Simone flourished at the bookstore, coming home each evening with stories of children who clung to her every word during story hour, and neighbors who stopped by just to say how proud they were to see her working and smiling again. I watched her confidence blossom, her laughter returning, and I realized that the daughter I'd feared was lost to me forever was slowly coming back, stronger and wiser than before. One afternoon, as we sat together on the porch, Simone turned to me, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and vulnerability. Mom, I want to do something for you. I want to help restore the villa. Not just for us, but for the whole community. Maybe we could host book clubs or garden parties, or even open the doors to women who need a safe place to land. Her words filled me with pride and a deep sense of purpose. That's a beautiful idea, Simone. This villa has always been more than just a home. It's a place for healing, for second chances, for new beginnings. We spent the next few days making plans, reaching out to neighbors and friends, and soon the villa was buzzing with activity. Mavis came by with her famous peach cobbler, Mrs. Harris brought cuttings from her own rose garden, and even the local pastor stopped in to offer his support. The sense of community was overwhelming, a balm to the wounds that had once threatened to tear us apart. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky blazed with color, Simone handed me a small envelope. I wrote you a letter, Mom. I wanted to put into words everything I couldn't say before. I opened it, my hands trembling, and read her heartfelt apology, her gratitude for my forgiveness, and her promise to honor the legacy Charles and I had built. Tears streamed down my face as I hugged her, the past finally laid to rest between us. That night, as we hosted our first book club in the villa's sunroom, I looked around at the circle of women, some old friends, some new faces, all drawn together by the promise of hope and healing. Simone read aloud from her favorite novel, her voice strong and clear, and I felt Charles's presence in the laughter and warmth that filled the room. As the evening wound down, Mrs. Harris pulled me aside, her eyes shining. You've created something special here, Gloria. You've turned your pain into a gift for all of us. I smiled, my heart full. That's what family is for. We lift each other up, even when the world tries to tear us down. As I climbed into bed that night, the villa quiet and safe around me, I whispered a prayer of thanks, for forgiveness, for second chances, and for the love that had carried us through the darkest days. The journey wasn't over, but I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, stronger than ever before. The morning of my 71st birthday dawned with a gentle breeze and the golden light of a new season streaming through the villa's windows, casting soft patterns on the old wooden floors. I woke to the sound of Simone humming in the kitchen, the aroma of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls drifting down the hallway, and for a moment, I let myself simply breathe in the peace that had taken root in our home. When I stepped into the kitchen, Simone greeted me with a smile that was all warmth and no shadows, her arms full of wildflowers she'd picked from the garden. "Happy birthday, Mom," she said, her voice steady and sure. "This year we celebrate you." The table was set with my favorite breakfast, and as we ate, neighbors and friends began to arrive, each carrying a dish or a bouquet, their laughter filling the villa with the music of community. Mavis led a toast, her eyes twinkling. To Gloria, who taught us all that strength isn't about never falling, but about rising every time life tries to knock you down. I felt tears prick my eyes as Simone squeezed my hand, her own eyes shining with gratitude and love. After breakfast, we gathered in the sunroom, where Simone presented me with a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver locket, engraved with the words, "Home is where forgiveness lives." I pressed it to my heart, overwhelmed by the journey we'd taken to get here. Later, as the afternoon sun warmed the garden, Simone and I walked among the roses, talking about the future. "I want to keep the villa open, Mom," she said. "For book clubs, for women who need a place to heal, for anyone who needs to know they're not alone." I nodded, pride swelling in my chest. "That's exactly what your father and I dreamed of, Simone. A home that gives back." As the day faded into evening, we hosted a garden party, lanterns glowing in the trees, the air alive with laughter and the promise of new beginnings. Mrs. Harris pulled me aside, her voice soft. "You've built something beautiful here, Gloria. Your story has given hope to so many." I smiled, my heart full. "It's not just my story, it's all of ours. It's proof that no matter how deep the hurt, love and forgiveness can always find a way." As the stars blinked to life above the villa, I sat on the porch, Simone by my side, and whispered a prayer of thanks, for the strength to endure, for the courage to forgive, and for the family and community that had become my greatest treasures. This is my true story. My name is Miss Gloria Matthews, and if you've ever felt betrayed, lost, or alone, I hope you know that healing is possible, that second chances are real, and that you are never too old to reclaim your peace. Thank you for listening to my journey. If it touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight. And remember, no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Sometimes the people we love most can hurt us in ways we never imagined. But if my story has taught me anything, it's that forgiveness is not weakness, and standing up for yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. I learned that even when you feel alone, you can find strength in your own heart, and sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven your daughter, or would you have closed the door for good? Have you ever had to fight for your peace, even when it meant standing up to your own family? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Maybe your words will help someone else find their courage too. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight. And remember, no matter how dark it gets, the dawn always comes. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. Until next time, this is Miss Gloria Matthews.